নমস্কার। আজ দুর্গাপুজো, বাংলার প্রিয় উৎসব। এই শুভ দিনে আপনাদের সকলকে জানাই অভিনন্দন ও শুভেচ্ছা। Mr. President, Excellencies and distinguished delegates, I am privileged to address the General Assembly. I bring you greetings from India. We are in the midst of our biggest festival of the year in Bengal, the state of India where I live. And on behalf of the people of India and the people of Bengal, I would like to wish each one of you a happy and prosperous Durga Puja. Mr. President, at the Rio Plus 20 in June this year, the global community made a solemn promise to craft a future that would truly and really, and not just in some cliched way, belong to all, to each one of us, to every child of Mother Earth. It was a promise to the marginalized to deliver a life of dignity, a life of hope. It was a pledge for us to fight poverty as the greatest global challenge. With just 3 years to go to the Millennium Development Goals finish line, where do we stand? The task at hand remains a daunting one. More than 1 billion people in developing countries continue to live in extreme poverty, hunger, and hopeless desperation. We need to do much more. On MDGs, we can take some comfort in collectively having made progress on poverty eradication, primary education, gender equality, and sanitation. However, when we introspect our record on maternal mortality, infant mortality, and malnutrition remains a matter of deep and abiding concern. We will have a more populous planet in the 21st century than ever before in human history. Yet, are we doing enough to harness this demographic dividend? In India, we have pursued the path of inclusive growth for achieving poverty eradication. We have in fact brought down poverty numbers significantly as compared to the 1990 levels. But we continue to be challenged by more than 300 million people living below the poverty line of US $1.25 a day. That's 300 million people. That's about equivalent to the population of the speaker from the United States just before me. Mr. President, Excellencies and distinguished delegates, and that should emphasize the enormity of the crisis and the moral obligation that still confronts us. In primary education, India has achieved a near 100% enrollment. In fact, this has been done due to the right to education legislation, which makes 8 years of schooling a legal right that the Indian state must ensure to every citizen. The challenge now, of course, is to focus on the quality of learning in our schools and to further narrow the gender gap in secondary and primary schooling. We have, for the first time in our history, added more female literates than males in the past decade, an achievement that we are justifiably proud of. However, India is conscious of the health and social development gaps that are yet to be addressed. Our commitment to tackling infant and maternal mortality and augmenting women's empowerment remains absolute and unflinching. It is part, in fact, of our nation-building tradition. As Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, one of the foremost minds of 19th century Bengal and a pioneer of modern India, and a champion of gender rights, female emancipation, and girls' education wrote, and I quote, "How sad, the country whose male population is unkind, unreligious, and unaware of the distinction between the good and the evil, and don't care about justice and fairness, and where abiding the rituals is the chief occupation of religion, should not give birth to girls." Unquote. This philosophy, which Vidyasagar explained in the 1850s, 150 years ago, anticipated the enlightenment of the MDGs. The MDGs, Mr. President, represent the most cherished chapter of multilateralism. At the Rio Plus 20, we discussed practically every aspect of human endeavor and came up with a blueprint for action on sustainable development, one that rightfully integrates economic growth with social inclusion and environmental sustainability. As we sit down to fashion the SDGs, we must do so with a clear idea that they would form the crux of the post-2015 development agenda. Dealing with challenges related to poverty, food, energy and livelihood issues should be our priority. The MDG framework has given us valuable lessons as to what works and what does not work. There is little value in trying to reinvent the wheel. The framework of MDG goals should be replicated in the new set of goals. Mr. President, our commitment to the MDGs and the Rio +20 is unwavering, but the global economic situation does not seem to favor us. Slackened growth, high inflation, particularly food inflation, a mounting debt burden, and high youth unemployment are undercutting the development gains made in developing countries. Therefore, it is of fundamental importance that we, as a global community, are able to put the world economy back on track. Nothing can be more helpful as we do our best to put more resources into and bring greater focus onto our developmental goals. We must also double our efforts to push for urgent progress on the Doha Development Round. Those who profess more trade and not aid is the answer to the development gaps of our era need to put their words into action. Shibboleths alone cannot do it. It is equally imperative to fashion a comprehensive and balanced outcome to climate change negotiations based on the principles of common but differentiated responsibility and equity. South-South cooperation must also contribute, and it must be allowed to grow within its own space and its own ecosystem, and in accordance with its own principles. It cannot and must not be a substitute for North-South cooperation. The two processes are complementary, and as a world community, we have to avoid limiting ourselves to either or choices. Mr. President, an issue of crucial importance today for sustainable development is the deficit of global governance. Without addressing this issue of global governance, we cannot restructure the 21st Century Comity of Nations as an equitable matrix that serves the cause of all. Decisions by the self-selected few can hardly provide the solutions we seek for the many. It is crucial, therefore, that developing countries are given due voice and participation in the decision-making structures of the global economic and financial institutions, especially the Bretton Woods institutions, and here at the UN. It is critical we move urgently on reforms of the Security Council by expanding it in both categories, permanent and non-permanent, to revitalize the General Assembly and to strengthen the ECOSOC. Mr. President, the Convention on Biological Diversity, born out of the Earth Summit, remains a seminal global compact on development. The past week in India, we successfully concluded the 11th Conference of Parties of the Convention of Biological Diversity. We hope its outcome will help us achieve our collective commitments. I wish to thank all the delegates for their support in making that event a success. In the developing countries, feeding our people, providing them with sustenance, is a challenge that we grapple with every day. We are hopeful our biodiversity resources and conservation efforts will help us find new solutions to food security and livelihood issues. Mr. President, space scientists call our Earth the Goldilocks planet. Not too hot, not too cold, just right for life. Indeed, in keeping with that imagery, humankind's evolution and prodigious attainments in the millennia that have passed have been nothing short of a fairy tale, a true miracle. True, our challenges are many, but given what we have achieved, given the disease and scourges we have beaten back, given the disasters and calamities we have learned to protect ourselves against, what we are left with, frankly, is only the last mile. With our collaborative effort and collective will, we can do it. We can fashion a better world for ourselves and as a legacy for our children and our children's children. Acting multilaterally through institutions and agencies such as the United Nations, we represent hope for millions across the world. This is a hope that seeks only the basic necessities of life. This is a hope we cannot betray. As the great Bengali poet Rabindranath Tagore, in the first Asian to win the Nobel Prize for Literature, put it in his eloquent words, and I quote, "I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted and behold, service was joy." Let us, as a global community, awaken to service and to joy. I thank you, Mr. President.